Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Health and Wealth Podcast with your hosts, Tim and Carter.
What's trending in Richers? Carter Wilcoxon, founder of CSI Financial Group here, with my co-host and former wealth advisor, Tim James, founder of
ChemicalFreeBody.com and your new health advisor. This is the show where we reveal the connection between physical and financial abundance.
Hey, welcome back in Richers. Carter Wilcoxon here. Pleased to be joined by Mr. Chemical Free Body himself, the truth, freedom, and health fan aficionado, Mr. Tim James. Tim, how are you, my man?
Hey, dude. Doing really awesome. Oh, man, I wish I had my... Did all I do it? Oh, here it is. You listeners won't be able to see this, but my girlfriend and I, we went back to Eastern Oregon to see my mom and dad. I'll show you guys the best picture. And it's right now, it's breeding season. It's just coming to an end for elk. And so we went up where I used to archery hunt and got into the elk, and I called them in. If you called in a pretty big 6-point bull, some cows, and then went around. Then we got into a whole bunch of them, saw probably like 14 bulls, 50, 60 cow elk. And then I knew where they were going. And so we went around the corner all the way, I don't know, it's probably 3 miles away. She's like, this isn't where they're going to be. I said, they'll be here. And then they showed up and we got them, and she started taking picture after picture. And then they kind of went around the corner. There's this open hillside on the left, and around the corner it was all dark timber. But there's this trail, this old skid road, and it was grown up with brush on both sides. Well, as we started going around the corner, one of the elk was still there on the right, saw us, and it bolted. It bolted, like just took off back the way that it came. And another one did the same thing. So all the elk around the corner that we couldn't see freaked out. Oh. And since those elk were going that way, they turned around and 40 head of elk come full speed down the head around the corner right at us. A whole herd of elk running at me and my girlfriend. She bails and leaves me there. And in like a millisecond, I was just like, a piece came over me. I'm like, don't move, just wave your arms and stuff like this. So I had a bunch of fir branches from a tree because I was carrying them with me. They're like my portable blinds. So we needed them too because we were in that road, and I stuck them down like that. And then we hid behind these fir branches. She was taking all these pictures. And earlier she's like, what are you carrying those branches around? I said, it's my portable blind. We might need it. We did. And then I started going like this and waving at them. And this herd of elk comes, and all of a sudden you could see their eyes when they recognized that I was like not a tree.
Yeah.
And then they just, I like literally, they just parted around me like Moses in the Red Sea. Bunch went to the right, a bunch went to the left. And then this great big huge bull came up. Wow. And then I cow called at him, and he bugled, and she snapped that photo. Look at that.
Wow.
Right above my mom and dad's house.
So Tim, I got to ask you, did your life flash before your eyes a little bit though?
Nope. I was just back home, used to it. Well, I'm used to cows running at me. We ran a lot of cattle growing up as a kid, and horses. I'm more scared of horses, man. Those damn things are huge. Yeah, I don't ever want to. I have a high awareness around walking around the back of a horse.
Yep.
Like I've seen horses like kick walls and shit and put holes in barns, and I'm like, I don't ever want to. They're just a huge. And these elk aren't anything to mess around with. I mean, that one kick they could kill you. But
is that what they call a 6-point? That one you showed us?
Yeah, that one actually was a 6-point. So it's 6 points, 6 times. It was perfectly symmetrical, pretty much. It would be called a typical. If somebody shot it and they scored it, it would be scored it, or they found the shed.
Looks like it's swearing at you or something. Like it's like yelling.
Yeah,
at you.
He was bugling. He was bugling right there. It was pretty freaking awesome. So we did that. We had all that done, wrapped up, and I put 3 big windows in my mom and dad's house, and finished caulking a little shed. So we got a lot done this weekend and had a good time. So it was awesome. And now here we're with Mike. We're going to learn about lead generation for advisors.
Not as exciting as that experience you just explained.
Well, it'll allow you to have the time to go out into nature and spend time with your lady or your hubby or your kids, right? If you have good leads, this is your problem. Yeah, that's if you don't have good leads, excuse me. This is like problem 101. It's like what they should say in the Series 6 and 66 and the Series 7. The first question should be, yeah, it's great that you get your license, but where are you going to get your business from? Right?
Yeah.
Because you're like all dressed up and you got no place to go, nobody to talk to. Imagine a dentist and he can't, if his hands aren't in your mouth, he is not making money. And financial advisors, if you don't have somebody sitting across the table from you, you are not making money, and it's going to be stressful. And you're always going to be chasing for leads. And it takes a long time to build up referrals. And today there's a lot of automation stuff. And so if you can have a ton of leads coming in all the time too, your life will be better. You'll get better clients because you can cherry pick the people you want to work with and send the jerks off to the other advisors and let them work with them and just make them hate the industry. I take the good ones. So lead gen's pretty darn important.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. And so in Richards, we are, it's a great segue to get into introducing our guest today on the show. I was very honored to have met Mike Rosenberg from Smart Assets maybe a few months ago. And during our conversation, I remember it had nothing to do with being on the podcast whatsoever. We were talking about Smart Asset and how we might be able to partner together in some different areas. Because obviously, as the enrichers are listening, they know that we are all about client acquisition, right? It all begins and ends with client acquisition. So I was thinking, there might be something here. But as I got to know Mike a little bit better on that initial conversation, and we were having a meeting like the way we're doing our podcast here today for you viewers, I'm like, man, you got to be on my podcast. I don't know if we're going to be able to do anything together, but you've got some really interesting things about you. You're a very compelling presenter whenever you're talking about, you got this passion about you and everything. I'm like, dude, you make a great guest on the show. Would you entertain being a guest on the podcast? And Mike, what did you say?
Yeah, I said, sign me up. This would be my first podcast ever. And Carter, likewise. I mean, I kind of figured early on it might not be a business fit, but ever so often I get into a conversation with someone where I'm just like, this is the type of person I want to work with. Like, you have something good to offer. So if any way we can work together, I'd be happy to try to help. And likewise. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what we do on the show, our enrichers, as we call them. That you're going to get a chance to sort of share, your journey a little bit. So let's go back in the way machine, if you will, and let's talk a little bit about how you got into where you're at today, right? I mean, most people don't start out thinking to themselves, "Oh, I'm going to be in sales." Right. In some capacity, obviously you are in sales, but it's a very much a relationship business. So I really want to be able to pull out of you, some things that led you to what you're doing today. And maybe some of the things that you've experienced in your life that make you good at what it is that you're doing. That may not be a traditional way of doing it. Right. I mean, not that you went to go get your MBA and that teaches you how to be great at sales anyway. Right. But what was it that led you down this path? So did it start back in, growing up, something your parents did, something that you saw in high school, maybe college, maybe a girlfriend led you down that path, whatever it was. So take us back and, share a little bit of where you come from and then, what led you there.
Sure. Well, going way back, I grew up in Wellesley, Massachusetts. And my family's always been in the restaurant industry. So maybe that was one reason why I didn't go into the restaurant industry personally. But I don't know how detailed we want to get in this part, but basically my grandfather started Dunkin' Donuts. And so my family has always been heavily restaurant. My dad opened up different restaurants and franchises. Discovery Zone, I guess, is one of them, if people remember back in the 90s. But the restaurant industry was really something in which I thought I would go into until I realized how hard it is, especially, working as a bartender and then a server and then going to be general manager at his place. So when I went to college down at Tulane, I didn't really know what I wanted to get into. I knew I wasn't an academic. I always got good grades, but kind of was more of the gift of gab was always going to be my thing. So when I was looking for a job, well, senior year was Katrina. That could be an interesting story. Had to overcome that. But then when I got back to Massachusetts, I was looking at, all right, what do I want to do? And I remember a job at New York Life Retirement Plan Services opened up, and they were offering me my licenses, Series 7, 6, and 63. And the marketing avenue was offering me nothing but hope. And I figured, all right, let me dive into this job at New York Life because I've got a lot of advisors in my family, and I think this is something that I want to get licensed, see how I play in the advisor world, and that's really what kind of got my start. And then unfortunately, that was 2008. So I had a crash course in being a service rep where a bunch of people that worked at 160 different companies thought I was the one person that stole 40% of their wealth when I was just the person answering the phone, moving mutual funds in their retirement accounts. So it was an interesting crash course in finance, not the best start, I guess, but it taught me a lot, not only about retirement plans, but about investing and about kind of it's not a gain or loss until you buy or sell. And so that kind of got me, unfortunately, interested. I don't mean like I wish '08 never happened in the financial collapse and I had to go through that, but it was an interesting time in realizing that how important it is, the education of it. And if I could get some sort of job, not answering this phone, but maybe in finance for a better way, then this was an avenue I wanted to go into.
So, okay.
Threw a lot at you, Carter. I don't know.
No. That
figured be as interesting
great
as possible.
No, are you kidding me? There's a lot of really, really good things and tracks that we can, go down and everything. So here's what I want to do. What I want to find out is how much partying did you do as a green waiver?
Too much. I mean, they're obviously, the bars don't close, and I wanted to go someplace that was far enough from home in Boston, but also a warm weather state. That was pretty much, and I just went to the best school that I got into. So that was my criteria. And then, New Orleans, where we packed our fridge full of venison, speaking of the elk, from my guy from Montana, and also Katrina. So it was a lot of good experiences, good and bad, but that was pretty much it on the criteria.
So, Tulane is a very well-known school for attorneys to go to get their law degree.
Yep.
So was there an attraction from that capacity at all for Tulane, or it would just be like, it's the only school that gave me a scholarship?
No, I'm addicted to podcasts that deal with murder and detective stories, but I know that the actual fine print is you have to read a ton. And I was a reader, but not an avid reader. So I knew law was never going to be my bread and butter. I really thought maybe it was going to be owning a franchise, a restaurant, something in business. I've always been surrounded by advisors, but I really had no idea coming out of college. I got it together though after I pledged. Pledging semester was a nightmare for my grades. But after that, I buckled down and came out with a reputable 3.1 GPA, I think, when it was all said and done.
Nice. Awesome.
Not great, just serviceable, for New Orleans.
Well, so I got to tell you, so in Richards, here's the deal. If you have never been to New Orleans, I'm going to say that arguably two things. Number one, arguably the greatest food on the planet. Okay.
Yep.
But number two, also arguably, the greatest people watching place on the planet as well. So my wife, my better half, if you will, Christina, she had never been to New Orleans. And in the infancy of CSI Financial Group I'd started a relationship with an estate planning attorney in Covington, Louisiana. And I would fly out to her office once a month for an entire week, selling my life insurance and annuities. Talking about lead acquisition, right? Here's the infancy of everything it is we do. So I would fly out there and she would have me scheduled for an entire week, back to back meetings, 5 of them in a row for 5 straight days with all of her clients as an estate planning attorney who needed life insurance and annuities that I could obviously be able to sell. Great way to break into the retail space, by the way. But flying out there once a month from Phoenix, it really gave me an appreciation for that area. I fell in love with that area, but my wife had never been there. So here's the point of the story, Richards. My wife's alma mater, Baylor University, was playing Georgia in the Sugar Bowl right before all of this shit that we're dealing with right now happened, right? So we went to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. And she had never been there before. So it was just a phenomenal experience. And we ended up meeting these three guys at what the hell's that name of that very famous bar downtown in the not
Pat O's?
What is it?
Pat O's? That's where they got the Hurricanes and the piano bar?
Yes. So we go in. I'm wearing her. So she played softball at Baylor University, right? I'm wearing her Baylor softball jacket, this big jacket, because it's January. It's still chilly there. It's overcast. And we end up meeting these 3 guys from Dallas that were there for some bachelor party or whatever. Still great friends with them to this day. But they were like, man, we got to have that jacket. Well, I got to have that jacket. So anyway, we just had so much fun drinking these Hurricanes all day and all night long. And she got her fill of New Orleans. And it was a great trip for her to go to and everything. So when you said you went to Tulane, which I didn't know that until this podcast recording, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to talk a little bit about that experience, maybe what you had there, and especially from the Northeast, going down there. A little bit of culture shock at all?
Yeah, culture shock, but Southern hospitality is real. Like, I just went down there 2 weeks ago because me and my friends, we pretend it's for fantasy football, but it's just a way for me and all my college buddies to like get together once per year. And it's been about 2 years with COVID since we did it. So we went back down to New Orleans, and like from the minute you step off the plane, like it's just a completely different world, and people wanting to talk to you, from the cab driver to the person at the hotel to like everybody around you is just there to just talk and be friendly. And maybe that's why, I've also become who I am today. Because like coming from Boston, that's not always the case. In fact, it's more confrontational anytime you go and talk to someone around there. So I love New Orleans, and it will always hold a pretty strong place in my heart. I've probably been back 12 times since I graduated.
Wow, that's awesome. So, well, the other thing that I do want to, peel back the layers of the onion a little bit more, because you just kind of sort of like, oh yeah, so my family started Dunkin' Donuts. Like, that's just no big deal. Like, that's just, we started Dunkin' Donuts. I
tried to add some spice to it. I mean, like if I got any sort of like gravitas, people like wanting to talk to me, like I never mentioned this to anyone, but I figured if this is your podcast and you're nice enough to host me for the first time ever, might as well throw it out there to see if it sparks some interest. But
so remember, this is the Health and Wealth podcast.
Right.
So I have a question for you. So it was really interesting. There's the family that owned Baskin Robbins, the 31 flavors ice cream, or maybe it's like 300 million flavors now.
Of course,
right?
They merged with Dunkin'.
Well, we have one of the sons or the grandsons was like a super smart genius. You know, if you know the story, and he decided, he was like a scientist, and he decided he was going to prove how awesome the ice cream was. So he got into it, and he dug and he researched and he came back and he said, we have got to stop selling this to people. Like literally, it's killing people. And he was excommunicated out of the family and out of the will and everything. But he said, I had to do it. He goes, I did my research, and he's like, dairy products are killing people. And I mean, I've been in the health space now for 11 years, and I grew up on a Hereford cattle farm. And, I saw Michael Jordan with milk mustache and all these people, and I was chugging milk like crazy, man. But it's a side story there. But where are you at on that? Are you like the circles of death? Are those good, or?
I mean, my uncle Bob, like he actually was part of the merger of Baskin Robbins with Dunkin' Donuts. So I guess I take this personally, your attack. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, listen, I think everything in moderation.
Yeah.
I'm not one to tell anyone how to live their life, nor I think some of the things that other people do might just be as bad. So like, I honestly agree. I think I always need to monitor myself in terms of my own health, but no,
I think it's one of those things too, because probably when they're making them, they didn't know. They just want to make a freaking good donut. You know what I mean? All this stuff has come out. People had no clue. Like, my parents are good, decent people, and they're still eating. They're still doing dairy. And my dad's got arthritis, and he doesn't get it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, and I didn't know they merged. So that's
yep.
Crazy.
Yeah,
story.
No, and it's not a personal attack, because I think my family and Dunkin' Donuts really took off when like in the late or early 2000s, after it's been sold out of my family, and now you see it in the back of the Red Sox, and like it's national, it's everywhere. Like, it was prominent when I was growing up, but it wasn't the the brand you know of today. So it's a bit,
Yeah.
that's why I don't mention it. I only mentioned it on this podcast because I thought it could spark some conversation. But in reality, I don't ever mention it to anyone when I meet them because
You eat
I
donuts
didn't
in the
do it.
closet then?
What?
You eat donuts in the closet? Are you a closet donut eater?
No, never. I mean, honey glazed donuts are pretty delicious, but no, I don't eat many donuts. I got enough vices. I don't need to add donuts.
Man, I used to eat donuts like by the dozen. My kids, I had to fight them man. That's like, there was this little Mexican place we used to go to, and I would, afterwards, man, their donuts were freaking huge. They were massive. And then guess what? I ate too many of them and I was massive. So I learned my lesson.
Oh yeah. I definitely have some sort of like eating addiction. I'm going to blame it on the Dunkin' Donuts, but I'm like, that's why I don't even eat donuts. I'm more of like, just stick to the sandwiches. But Krispy Kreme was big down south, so not worth mentioning because people would obviously want to go toe to toe with me if I did.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, I know that we're probably coming up on a break and everything, but I thought that was, if nothing else, that's pretty cool. I mean, good for you, not good for you, in moderation, by the way. I believe everything in moderation, right? There is something, too much of a good thing that does actually exist, right? But that's just when you said started Dunkin' Donuts, and then me as a kid, I'll be 50 in January. Everybody's coming to my big 50th birthday bash. Hopefully, everybody's invited on the podcast. I just remember, the Dunkin' commercials. It's time to make the donuts, right? The old guy waking up every morning. Time to make the donuts, right? So when you said Dunkin' Donuts, it's like all this flood of memories came back to me of when I was like, 10 years old.
Yeah. I've got a Fred the Baker sign, time to make the donuts. Thanks, Mike, or something. That's the one picture I have in my kitchen that just to let people know.
That's awesome.
No, I'm just kidding.
All right, so we're going to take a break, but I want to let everybody know it's okay to have a donut once in a while. It's
Thank
cool.
you. Yes,
it's not.
This is the Health and Wealth podcast. This isn't the the soup nut. We're not the donut Nazis over here. I was just joking a little bit, but everything in moderation. So we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to dive into Mike's lead asset generation tools, what his company's all about. We'll be right back.
Estate planning. What does that even mean? When the inevitable happens for everyone on this planet, your estate plan kicks into action. But first, let's start with what an estate is. An estate is simply everything you own. Now, here's the issue and what needs to be understood when this event occurs. You only have two choices on this plan. Number one, either you plan how your estate gets handed out and distributed to those you leave behind. Or number two, your state decides who gets everything you own. For the first time ever, you can now take complete and total control of this plan that you've been deprived of for most of your life and generations before you. You can get personalized assistance along the way with a team of specialists whose job it is to make sure you have true peace of mind. It's important to understand that estate planning is a journey, and rest assured that our team will be available to you all along the way and at every step. Welcome to Estate Plan, home of the last estate plan you'll ever need. To learn more, make sure to reach out to your local advisor licensed with us or go to our website for more information.
What's up, Enrichers? Tim James here. I'm back with my co-host Carter Wilcox, and today in the house we've got Mike Rosenberg from. Now we're going to be talking about. You got a couple businesses. We're going to be doing Smart Advisor. We'll be talking about that. But if you want to talk about smart assets, smart asset, we can do that too. But Mike, why don't you get into like what your company does and how you help advisors, and then we'll let Carter take it from there.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, kind of picking up from the story I didn't really tell was like, I've got a bunch of family members that are financial advisors. I was a financial advisor wholesaler for a long time selling mutual funds. And we would basically go into offices. I did the Midwest and the Northeast. And, a lot of them, we bought our mutual funds because they were some of the best in the Texas. But in reality, we were doing marketing for them, whether it's client dinners and seminars, events and kind of how to grow their business organically or through my help monetarily. And so that was really the catalyst, which when I heard about Smart Asset, I asked them, what they do. Technology has gotten to a place where a lot of people are going online. I knew a lot of lead companies back from 2010 to 2000, roughly 18, didn't really do what they said they would do or have the backup involved. So a lot of advisors felt disenfranchised by using lead companies. But when I heard of Smart Asset, I listened to their process and how they ran it and their vetting and their transparency. And I said, okay, so this might really work, because it's not just what we're telling people we're doing, we're actually showing the proof involved in how we do it. And that's really when I was looking for a new job. I said, this is the right job for me, because I don't think there's anything else out there that does what Smart Asset does. And it's not because they set out to do it. It's because of how they were founded and their visibility in the financial news space. When I heard about that and their process, I was like, this is a company that should do extremely well and make advisors a lot of money. I mean, like you guys mentioned earlier, incredibly hard to ask people or grow your business as an advisor, especially if you're starting out. I felt like when I was a wholesaler, there was two ways that you can do it. One would be you get linked up with a team as a junior advisor, so they can kind of nurture you and have the clout and backing. So when you go to talk to investors, mainly, I guess, your family and friends, to start with, that you could say, listen, it's not just me 1 year in the business, it's me and a seasoned advisor and a team behind me. And the seasoned advisor would use them just as well to bring money in, because they didn't want to be the one to ask for the money, but they also knew that they needed to grow, and vice versa. The junior advisor knew he didn't have the experience, but he had the energy put forth to go bring in that money. The second way is you had a lot of family money or 50 million off the bat to grow your business. So how else, if those two things aren't involved, are you going to be able to do it? Well, you got to come up with some sort of network. And that's where Smart Asset comes into play, because we have the best leads, in my opinion, based on our visibility in the financial news space.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, Smart Asset, if you don't mind, here's your opportunity to talk about why advisors like working with you. What's the typical conversation you're having with advisors when they're, trying to poke the holes in the boat, right? Like, oh, sounds too good to be true, maybe, or whatever the case may be. So, share with the enrichers what it is that really helps to get them over the hump to decide that, yeah, this just makes sense. Let's do it.
Sure. I mean, I'm a straight shooter. I can really only sell stuff that I truly believe in. And since I've joined Smart Asset in 2018, I've brought in a lot of money for financial advisors. I mean, it's a two-way street, though, because advisors that sign up have to be willing to do some follow-up with our coaching, emails, phone calls, and then, of course, have to sell their business once they get someone on the phone. But really, my sell to them comes down to something that I've always looked at. Like, I as a salesperson, I don't trust any salespeople. I'm like, great, this sounds amazing, but where's the proof? And I think what really grabbed me about this product and what I sell to advisors is that, all right, if you can name another product out there that has a 31 page by page question survey, where people have to come in organically, finish it organically, as well as opt into having an advisor reach out, and we show that to you through the proof of the lead, then okay, you have me stumped, but I know that there's nothing else out there that does that. And there's a lot of different companies out there that will try to sell you on a meeting or on a high number of leads versus the cost. But what it comes down to it is just like, okay, I get that survey. I know they filled it out. And so therefore, that's the proof I need. I mean, at the most basic level, that's kind of what I hung my hat on. Now, since I've joined the company, obviously, there's a whole host of other features and other things that we can do that others can't, that generally take 30 minutes to explain. Don't want to obviously throw the pitch out there, but I'd say at the core, that's kind of what made me really interested in joining, and what I still use as the main part of my presentation.
Yeah. So, and not to put you on the spot here, Mike, but
Please do.
Those who are listening to your pitch, so to speak, a lot of them, especially because we are in the advisor, recruiting space as well with CSI, and obviously with Epic Services Company now being launched, we're working with a lot of advisors, bringing value add to them for those client acquisition opportunities. But a lot of the questions that I get are, okay, so just out of curiosity, do you have anybody else that's using the system that, the retention, what does that look like? Do you get those types of questions? Because typically the proof's in the pudding, right? If you have advisors that are constantly, continually using your services over and over and over again, they're doing that because it works, right? So is that a question that you get during your conversations?
Yeah, of course. I mean, well, less now than it was in the past. I mean, there are some people that are like, I read such and such. This person had a bad experience. Can you hook me up with an advisor that did well? And, we used to do that, but it's self-serving because then you give them someone and they're like, well, that you gave us the best. Could I get another one? Similar to the funniest thing I got recently was you match people up with 3 advisors. Could I get 3 advisors that are currently working it as a spectrum? And I just like to think when in business do you call up like Comcast or some cable company? You go, could I hear 3 service providers that want to call me and talk to me about it? It's tough because we sign privacy agreements, and obviously when things are working, people don't want to share their secrets, especially in the advisor world, in their own territory when they feel like they're taking advantage of something that no one knows about. But I would say that from a standpoint of this working, I mean, we closed our Series D funding valued at $1 billion. We're the second. There's one other company that has been valued at $1 billion that has raised less funding than us. So we're doing something right. And our retention rate being 92% under contract speaks for itself. But really, I say to anybody that's looking to work the leads, that's why I hang my hat on the survey. Because if you're looking to grow and you're looking to get new customers, so to speak, then like what else are you comparing us to? And where else are you going? Now, we have case studies that are real people with just changing the face and name. And we do give out, on occasion, advisors that are willing to talk. But most advisors are looking to work their own leads, not try to convince another advisor to join the platform. So it's a tricky balance.
92% retention rate. That's like, see, to me as a business person, I'm like, if somebody has that, I'm like, something's working. You can fool some people some of the time, but you can't fool all the time right there. So, I mean, I would be interested. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, and I've done win-back campaigns early on where I thought I'd be yelled at. Like, I'm like, oh, this person left the platform, so you're telling me I got to call them up? And I would be like, I'm here to gather information about your experience, because I was terrified to be like, let me resell this person. I'm not a hard salesperson. It kills me. Like, I don't even like when I'm sold to. So when I did that and I went through every lead with those people, I realized, oh my God, they didn't even realize how much money they were making. Because like all you need to do is sign 1 out of 20 leads or 1 out of even 30. And if it's reoccurring revenue and you just paid for the leads, then you're going to be making money. Now, how much money and versus what else could you be doing out there? That's a conversation I have to get in more depth with each advisor. But I realized that at very minimally or conservative levels, that this thing as an investment is making advisors a ton of money. And that's really where I realized, okay, this is a company that, like, as long as you walk through that exercise with people, you'll realize that it doesn't take much. And then it's reoccurring revenue. So yeah, I'm completely sold on it, and it takes a lot to sell me. So the tough part is talking to advisors that A, got to put up the money up front and don't trust you, or B, have been burned in the past by these type of companies. So you have to kind of try to convince them that this is going to work. But more often than not, it does. But once again, advisors do have to put in work. Like, you have to make a cadence, you have to make the calls, and you have to be somewhat likable. That's the part of this business that's hard to quantify or sell someone on, because part of that end is on them.
So just out of curiosity, Mike, who is, like, when you're talking to what you would consider your ideal client, who, whenever you're talking to them as a prospective advisor, looking at smart asset, looking at smart advisor, do you have sort of like, checkpoints? You're like, oh, this guy's perfect, or this gal's wonderful, they're going to be successful. And maybe your approach with them is a little bit different simply because of how the conversation goes. Maybe they're more personable as opposed to maybe somebody else. And do you sometimes, to kind of sort of segue away from that, do you sometimes have to tell advisors, this just might not be for you?
Yeah, I mean, on one end, if any advisor that I'm talking to has done any sort of business marketing wise and they've done it successfully, I'm fired up. I'm like, because that's the part that's hard to quantify is like, have you done marketing and been successful in that marketing? Because if that's the case, then we should do really well working with you. But if you haven't, then it's more of a trust thing. Like, will you make the calls? Like, will you be able to intro yourself well? Like, from a 30-minute conversation, I'd be disingenuous if like I told someone, oh, you're going to do great, if I don't really know what their intro call is or how they pitch their business. But in all honesty, all it takes is some like caring, coming from a caring perspective, looking to help people and not being aggressive, like you owe me a meeting because I bought this lead. That's really the criteria that I personally have before I put the brakes on. Aside from that, if an advisor comes to me and they go, I'm looking for divorcees, or I'm looking to work with just doctors, then I have to be very realistic with them. And I have to say, listen, we don't segment anything more than geography and movable investable asset range. And without going through my demo right here of like who we really capture and why we're capturing so many of those assets, I would say to that person, just know pre-retirees at retirement, 860,000 in assets and 70% have never worked with an advisor. Our demo, it's like, but I can't tell you we're going to match you up with divorcees. Like, it's not going to happen. So if that's your only criteria, then maybe you shouldn't join, because I don't want you to waste your money.
They could just go on match.com and start calling people.
Right? Like, that would be like, that's quick thinking. I could say that, and then they might do it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's interesting, Mike, because, we are, working in the same, pool. The bit of a difference that the advisors that you're typically working with, right? They're vetted, right? You have to vet them, and they have to have certain licensing and things of that nature, right? So some people that may be listening right now, if you don't mind, will you give maybe sort of like the fundamental baseline in order to use your services?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So our criteria, our disclosures go over that you have to be a financial advisor, local and registered with an IA tag, which is generally a series 66, 65, maybe CFP, within the state you're working. And you can't have any disclosures or most disclosures within the past 10 years. And the demo we're targeting, because this is hugely important, and I learned this firsthand from my 2008 experience working at New York Life in the retirement plan services, where people were calling me up, is that we're capturing a lot of money from people that are setting retirement dates and have significant assets that they've saved over years, but have never been considered affluent. So they might have north of $1 million, but they turn to us because they go, I've never had to think of my finances before, never had an advisor. So they go and they look at their retirement account, maybe in a money market, target date fund, or maybe in a mixture of mutual funds. And they go, where do I go from here with this, along with 7 other things that I need handled? And those plans aren't motivated to give them necessarily the resources to either one, make a decision, or move their money out of the plan. And so they Google a Forbes article on retirement, or see us on Instagram, are you prepared for your retirement, or Google retirement calculator. And then they go, okay, I can now go through this service, do 15 minutes of work, get a disclosure-free advisor backed by Smart Asset, and maybe for a free service, I'll find one of the 3 choices a good fit for me. And that's really where I think advisors are missing the mark, is where technology is these days, and how many people go to that resource to get advice because they're uncomfortable knowing what's around them. Can't tell you how many people are like, there's a Merrill Lynch down the street. Why would they go to me? I'm like, because that's not how people think anymore.
No. And I've been saying it for quite some time now that, what was supposed to happen in 2030 happened in 2020, right? So,
yep.
One of the things that makes our offering so unique, obviously, it's completely opposite of what most advisors do, which is we lead with estate and legacy planning as the foundational approach to client acquisition. And that's our differentiator. But the beauty of our platform is it is all digital, but it's all white glove, personalized, hand holding support all along the way to get all that stuff done. And then the advisor on the back end, whenever their clients get done with that experience, they're just thanking them so much for this solution that they were like, hey, I was under the impression the only way I could get this stuff done is by going and seeing an estate planning attorney. Well, the digital age, I mean, there's at least 5 different, I could rattle them off real fast, softwares that are being utilized right now in the financial advisory space where the estate planning is done. And that's sort of how they're differentiating them and how we separate ourselves, that we still leverage not only the technology, but also the personal touch. And that you can't lose that personal touch. So I'm curious on this, when you're talking about the lead acquisition, for your prospective smart asset clients, they are starting with strangers, right? They don't know these clients at all, so they have to cultivate that, and that takes some time, right? To be able to, nurture them and continually. You may get somebody and you call them and you continuously work with them, but you have to learn how to nurture those prospects along the way as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, we give you all the tips, tricks, and tools, if you want to call them that, from successful advisors on our platform in terms of cadence and outreach. That's more for consistency, as well as making sure people are organized and following up with their leads, because people get so many calls and emails these days. It's way different than 10 years ago, where if someone avoided my call for 3 times, they'd be like, they're ghosting me. They're not, they don't want to talk to me. Nowadays, I think people just get calls and they're like, don't know that number. And then next thing you know, you pick them up at the right time. But I think it's more of a state of mind. Like when I was wholesaling, you would do a client dinner at Del Frisco's with like 20 people, and you would get 10 people in your network, and some of them would bring a friend. Some of them would have people you don't know. And it's tangible. It's like in front of you. I'm going to meet these people. But what you don't see behind the scenes is that out of 22 people getting free meals at Del Frisco's that took a lot of money, anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, you would also get people after the meal that would take meetings just because they got a free meal. So you'd have like 8 meetings, 6 of which would probably be just because they felt bad about it, and you'd close 2 clients. So when I look at this product, I don't look at it as any different. I just look at it as a kind of a new way of doing business. People are more comfortable putting their information online, and they're almost just as warm, if not warmer, because the close rate of these remind me exactly of the same client dinners and seminars, except in fact, you spend less money and use less time in trying to close them. So I'd say it's more of like wrapping our heads around the new way of doing business than anything. I know that wasn't answering your question, but
no,
kind of goes hand in hand.
It does answer the question though, actually. It's
okay, cool.
They are, I'm just in my mind, I'm envisioning that the client themselves, the first time that let's say they pick up the phone, they have never talked to this advisor before though, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's what I meant by it's still stranger lead acquisition, but because they've gone through your vetting process, they tend to be more of a warm lead, not exactly like cutting into a, bone-in fillet, but there definitely is some warmth there that they're sort of expecting someone to be reaching out to them.
Yeah, and that's why I like that we stop at 3 advisors reaching out, because it's just the right amount of people for the investor to feel like they have a choice and the power of choice to sign with one of them without leaving our page and going back to the internet. Because if it was a 1-to-1 match, it actually hurts success rates. And this is what advisors have trouble wrapping their heads around, just like anyone, because you want an exclusive lead, but you don't realize that exclusive lead isn't really exclusive. It's just you might be the only one reaching out, but there's the world of the internet out there for them too. And that's kind of the difficult part. So by giving them 3 options, it actually helps juice success rates because they trust Smart Asset. They find the right fit and want to sign with them. And number 2, it's like we give you that survey, which I talked about, because a lot of lead companies might tell you this is a warm lead, but if I don't see the proof, then why would I believe you? So seeing the 31 questions that they want an advisor to reach out can spark the right conversation. And listen, not every lead's going to be a home run, but that's why if you sign 5% of them, you're making really good money and hopefully building a client base that fits that demo I spoke of earlier. But yeah, it's a new age. I agree. It's like, you're still calling strangers, and you still gotta, have the gift of gab, as I say about me. Like I would do well at it. Is it for everyone? I don't know. We'll find out, but most advisors are in that position for a reason, because they can talk to people. Is my opinion. For sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Tim James, you have anything about Smart Advisor or Smart Asset that, as a former wealth advisor, how we are living in this, internet age. And I've been saying again for quite some time that the clientele that our advisors are after, the ideal clients, right? 55 to 85, somewhere in that range, right? Who have accumulated wealth and they have wealth. They've been thrust into being comfortable online, right? So now, at least at this point, you're not having to convince people about being online and being comfortable, having those types of conversations. So what do you think, from your perspective as a former wealth advisor with,
well, for me, I just think it's really simple. I mean, if you have, you have to have a constant source of lead generation. If you don't have it, you're out of business. You're going to be running around going to, lead gen meetings at 7 a.m. in the morning, meet a bunch of people, and then everybody's just trying to get leads. They really don't produce leads. I started a buddy of mine said, you need to start a lead group. So I did, and I followed his principles, and I would work my ass off and show up, and I'm during the day talking to people, and I'm handing out leads all over the place, and you just don't get a whole lot back. So it's almost like you put in all this effort. I mean, it's not that they don't work. Some of them do. But what I've noticed when I joined, I got coached. They said the groups that worked the best that they had actually studied, was real estate professionals and mortgage professionals across the United States. The two that actually paid well was being in Rotary. That was one. And the other one was small groups of just guys or gals just getting together. Just talk about life and the key there was you to be in that group of people that made at least $250,000 a year, or they had an assistant. That means they were kind of really active and growing, and they were, they had the ability to refer you business, and you could actually refer them. So tight knit groups that met once a week, that was not just about business, but they did a lot of business together. And then Rotary was about, giving back to the community, and it was a lot of retired people, successful business people that were wanting to give back. And then they were always watching new people come in Rotary. They just here to get leads. And now they're watching. You got to show up. You got to do the work. And then once you're part of the group, business was just a natural flow. So if you're not going to go out and work your tail off and do all that stuff, which I think you should. I think you should have a small knit group and have business owners, and you should have your business contacts, and you should, maybe join the Rotary and give back to the community, because that's the whole point. We're not doing that enough. I mean, we used to hand out dictionaries to third graders. We clean up the streets in front of buildings and stuff, and help business owners that were struggling reface and paint we're doing stuff, right? But the bottom line is you have to have some lead generation. So, my buddy that was very successful in the financial advisor arena spent $150,000 a year on marketing.
Yep.
And, he's net, and after years, he got to that point. How did he get to that point? He was netting $2.4 million a year. He would plan everything in October, November, plan out the whole year, all of his marketing every month. He knew exactly how much money he was going to spend, where he was going to spend it, where he was going to do his presentations, what dinner was going to be served at those restaurants, and he knew his topic that he was going to talk about. He had it all planned in advance. Then he just showed up and he just did the work. And guess what? His calendar got packed, and then eventually he got another advisor. Now there's 18 people over there, and they're crushing it in 3 locations. So lead gen's important. So
there you go.
All right. So it's time to take a quick break. So when we get back, we're going to flip the script, and Mike gets to ask me any question on health. We'll be right back.
You want the absolute best for yourself, and you want it to be easy. That's why we created Green 85. It helps with detoxifying the body gently. We're proud it's chemical-free, unlike almost all other supplements you'll find. Bottom line, Green 85 will get you healthier. We look forward to hearing what Green 85 did for you.
To get this product and our other amazing products, go to chemicalfreebody.com. That's chemicalfreebody.com.
What's up, enrichers? Tim James here with my co-host Carter Wilcoxon. Back in the house, Mike Rosenberg from Smart Advisor, Lead Gen Corporation, company, international. They're everywhere. Big company. So Mike, let's flip the script, buddy. Go ahead and ask me any question you have on your health, your family's health, community health, anything you want.
Sure. Like I said earlier, I'm a work in progress. So I mean, these are more abstract questions that I've been fighting with my whole life. And I think one of which I've realized has always been tough for me is like eating healthy isn't hard for me. It just seems expensive and a lot of work. And what I mean by that is like I buy groceries and they have like a finite amount of time or shelf life, right? So like I always set out for a goal of eating healthily, and then I realized this is way too difficult for me. Care to elaborate on some strategies that you have in terms of like eating healthy every day instead, that's cheap and effective, so to speak? I can elaborate, but I kind of mean like,
yeah, so I get it.
Stuff.
So, and not time consuming either. Just got to be simple. So,
yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the bottom line is you just eat lower on the food chain, right? And you buy stuff in bulk. I mean, that's what it boils down to: nuts, seeds, grains, beans, and then things like sprouts. Sprouts are things that you guys can grow at home 365 days a year on your countertop. It's not hard. You don't even need soil. So if you're looking at like, I mean, some of the things are, the packaged so-called quote unquote healthier stuff where it's all cut up and done for you. Yeah. I mean, that stuff, soups that are pre-made and all that stuff it's going to cost more because you got more hands involved in it. There's more time. But the problem is that the work product goes down. So the more you have somebody in between you and your food source, between you and Mother Earth, the lower the quality. So it sounds like you were buying fresh stuff. So one thing you can do to keep your stuff fresher, especially your vegetables, make sure your refrigerator is set between 34 and 42 degrees, fairly cold. And then that's going to help you maintain it. The other thing you want to get things called green bags. Green bags. They're called Debbie Myers bags or Everett Fresh bags. These bags are permeable and they have this mineral in them called Oya, and I'm just telling you, like, even if you're not into getting healthy and you want your vegetables fresher, it's amazing. Like, it's amazing. I'm like, how did I not know about these when I got into this like 11 years ago? Like, you put it in there, you get there out, wrap them up, and you stick them in there, and my God, and then those bags will last like 4, 5, 6 months, then you replace them with another one. I would suggest getting a mixture like large, medium, and small, so then you can put different stuff in them, right? And then put it
reusable.
Yeah, and then just put it. Yeah, you just clean up the stuff in water, dry them out. So then you just put a date. When I take them out and I use them, I put the date on it. Then I know when I started with it, and about 4 or 5 months later, I pitch it and get another one. Right? Green bags are amazing to keep your stuff fresh. So something like simple fixes like right out of the gate is like a lot of people eat lots of rice. Okay, perfect example. Rice today is not really that healthy. Okay, so rice is a grass, and that seed that comes up, it's a pretty good deal for us, but they have to strip the bran off of it. That's rice bran, and all you're left with, and in the bran is where 90% of the nutrition is. All you're left with is like an empty starchy carbohydrate. That's like brown rice and white rice, garbage. And the reason why is because for like 1,500 years, they've been hybrid, spliced and spliced and spliced. So I've tried sprouting these things. You can't sprout them. I'm a master sprouter, and you can't get them to sprout. Like, they just don't do it. They're so molecularly dense, just like black beans, soybeans. Soybeans, black beans, and rice are very dense. You look at the nutritional qualities under a microscope. They're awesome, but you can't digest them. So those like, stay away from soybeans and black beans. All the other beans are good. And look out for only rice you would want is wild rice. Now, the reason why, again, is they strip that bran off as an example, because there's a digestive enzyme in there called lipase, and it would actually digest the rice itself, and the rice would go rancid within 6 months of storage. Big corporations, that's not good for them. They need to be able to store that, ship it, and all over the place. So they strip the bran off, remove 90% of the nutrition. You're left with these starchy carbohydrates. That's all you got left, right? It's just basically eating a mouthful of sugar. So if you're going to have rice, all wild rice. Or we switch people over to like things like quinoa, a healthy seed, or teff, an Ethiopian grain, right? Stuff like this. Amazing stuff. So, and then there's other things like amaranth, teff. I mentioned teff. I mean, there was something else I was saying. Kamut, spelt. There's different grains that you can get that have not been so commercialized yet, right? Now, here's the cool thing. You can buy this stuff in like 25, 50-pound bags. And get it, instead of paying, like, you buy a little box of something and you're paying like $12 a pound for it if you were to measure it out, you can buy it in a 50-pound bag and get it for $2.39. You see? And then you just have storage buckets. So you start building up your storage. You build up your seeds. And there's two things that'll happen here. Number one, you're going to save a lot of money. A lot of money. Your food's going to be fresher because you're sprouting it out of the gate. You get to choose because you can talk to the farms directly and get to know them and find out what their planting practices are and make sure they're remineralizing the soil and how they do it. And even better if they do permaculture where they don't till at all, right? That's the best, where all those microbiome and the soil bacteria in there. So, that's good. But also, like, look around. People are worried about if shit hits the fan, what am I going to do for food? You saw what happened when Corona first hit and the people taking toilet paper. What do you think is going to happen? Most people don't even have a freaking clue what to do, right? So I always tell people, get a wild foraging book, edible foraging book for your area. You can get them at a used bookstore for $4 to $10. Probably the best investment you can make to not worry about that. But the other thing is like,
that's the cheapest route, by the way.
You have a huge storage of seeds, nuts, grains, beans sitting there that you can make these things into dressings. You can make them. I can make a dressing out of sesame seeds. It's unbelievable. You can take sunflower seeds, sprout them, and then you can make a pate out of them. Better than tuna salad. Chop up some dill pickle or some onions and some celery, and you homogenize in like a food processor. Just some like sprouted sunflower seeds. Like, all I mean by that is you soaked them in water for 4 to 6 hours. Now they're technically sprouted. They release the natural insecticides, the protectants inherent in any nut, seed, grain, or bean. They become on average 8 times more digestible, and the nutrition goes up 100 to 800%. Think about that. Want to save money? You put high quality nutrition into your body, your cells will get what they need, and they'll turn off the hunger signals. You can't eat as much. You just won't need it. And then you don't have to be like a rental car, just foot to the pedal, just burning gas and going around the corners. That's us just consuming standard American diet, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, breakfast. Just go, wearing out the machinery, the hardware on the inside. When you get high quality food, the machinery will be like, hey, I don't need to eat anymore. I'm cool. But we are so deficient because we're eating food grown in nutrient deficient soil. So step number one, find nutrient deficient or nutrient dense soils and farmers that have that, and then buy in bulk from them, label it, seal it really good in airtight containers. And for long-term storage, you can actually take diatomaceous earth. You guys familiar with that? Okay, it's like microscopically, it's like glass shards, but you could like mix it into like make a putty, and you could like, some people they drink that stuff and would clean out their colon and kill parasites and stuff like that. But you can sprinkle it on carpets or in grass and kill fleas, but you can actually swallow it. I mean, it's okay. But what you can do with diatomaceous earth is you can sprinkle a little bit in the bottom of your bucket, put some seeds, nuts, grains, or beans in it, sprinkle a little bit in the middle, and then put a little bit on top once it's full, and seal it. That way, if there was any bugs in the seeds, which is okay, that's not a bad thing, because if they were grown organic, then it'll kill them, right? And then you have to deal. And then when you take them out and you soak them, the dead bugs just go away. You just rinse them off, and then they sprout, and you make them, right? So anyway, there's a lot of things you can do here, Mike, but I think the key is like, eat low on the food chain and really get into storing your food. Nuts, seeds, grains, and beans, and try to buy direct through a wholesaler or direct with a farmer. And then that's some things that you can do to really lower your budget. And then you need some recipes other than that. I mean, you just got to get yourself a few recipes, and, you can make a big pot of soup too on Sunday. And then, you have the soup you can eat throughout the rest of the week, right? So you can make bigger meals and stuff like that on the weekends, and then just add the sprouts to them as you go.
So Mike, you are now in Connecticut, correct?
You unmute, Mike. Up top, must have bumped it.
Yeah.
Oh, my fault. Yeah, I'm in Connecticut.
No. So it was funny whenever Tim was talking. Look, I've been to the Northeast, I think 3 times total, and it was only because I was flying out of some airport headed, across the pond. So I've never really been out in the Northeast, right? So when I hear Connecticut or New York or Boston or whatever, I'm not picturing farms anywhere in that location to be able to find, these types of things. But I would imagine that there's got to be farmland somewhere. You're in the burbs. There's got to be maybe more rural areas somewhere, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, way more than New York City, that's for sure. I mean, I moved here about 8 months ago, but yeah, we got some farm stands. I think Trader Joe's would still be the place I go to. I mean, I guess I'm a city boy as it stands now, as they call it. But like, no, those are all good. And I always fight myself in terms of like what I know is healthy for me. What are things that I like to eat, comfort foods mixed with what will hold in the fridge. So I think you did a good synopsis of all of that. In terms of, I feel like I'll know where to find it, but it's still difficult. I mean, I'm not in farm country, but I think there's some places out here.
Yeah. I was just curious when Tim was talking about that. I mean, obviously I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and there is a farmer's market that I just happen to know. Every Saturday you go to the farmer's market and you can get all types of these, really, cool stuff. But without searching for it, in my mind, I'm thinking, man, is there anything in Connecticut that you could go to? My ignorance is.
No, I think I could find it now. Whereas in New York City, I would say no. Because like just getting out of the apartment and going through traffic to do this was like already too much time. But like considering that now I'm in the burbs, no, I feel like if I want it bad enough, I could search for it and find it.
Yeah. Tim, what else we got?
I got a question for you, Tim.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got a follow up here. What about that thing you said about milk earlier, right? Like, how much do we know about health? And then how do you know that it's going to be healthy in 5 years when we find out something else about it? I feel like every time I'm in the grocery, I'm always like, oh, this is what's healthy now, but they're just going to tell me in 5 years that it's not healthy. If you know what I'm talking, I mean, that's a trick question, actually.
Milk is an example. I mean, it's all we have to do is plug into common sense. What's the purpose of cow's breast milk in nature? It's for a baby cow. How long? Until that baby cow's weaned, and then it goes and eats what? Grass. Okay. So why are we drinking cow's milk? Like, would you go suck on the breast of a cow? If so, then maybe milk's a good thing for you, right? If not, why cows? How come we don't drink giraffe milk or lion milk or rat milk? Why is it a cow? Well, because cows are huge. They're big. They've been bred and hybrid. They're very docile. They can be manipulated easy. And they can also, then they turn them into hamburger at the end of the day, right? And while they're producing dairy, they're spitting out babies. They keep them lactating 24/7. Cows usually, we've had cows on the farm that would live 20, 25 years old. These cows wear out in 4 and a half, 5 years because they're constantly keeping them, injecting them with hormones. And then they're constantly impregnating them. They put them in these things called rape racks. I mean, the whole thing's disgusting. Their nipples are completely exhausted, just sore all the time from being milked. It's a terrible thing. And as soon as they have the baby's gone. They send the baby off and make veal out of it, right? And the moms and the babies are screaming for days. It's a really terrible process. So when you drink that milk, also because of these cows are so infected, like even some clean milk, what you'd think would be clean, like a glass of it could have 100,000 pus molecules in it because there's a systemic natural infection happening inside this breast milk production because it's supposed to have a baby, have its breast milk, and then rest until the next season. One time a year, a cow should have a child, and then it would heal. From imagine your wife having babies coming out, one after another, after another, after another. She's gonna wear out. Like she can't do that. She's gonna have a few kids, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, maybe more. I don't know. And then that's it. She's gonna have some time in between. Birth is a very it's a big deal. It's traumatic. It's tough on the body. There's a lot of stuff going on. Things
I'm a 1-year-old, so I know well.
Right. So, but if you look at it in a scientific point of view, it's like, well, what's cow's milk made of? Well, the main protein in it is casein. Casein causes cancer. We know this. Like Dr. T. Colin Campbell was doing research in the Philippines to try to help poor, kids with protein deficiencies. So he's like, oh, we'll use casein in milk. And with rats, he was able to give them 5% protein. And most of that protein was 85% of it was casein, the main protein found in milk. Well, no problem. But when he pumped it up to 20%, all the rats developed tumors. And then he took them back down to 5% and the tumors went away. Give them back to 20% protein, tumors came back. So he was literally turning cancer on and off with the amount of protein going in us. How much cancer do we have today in our society?
A lot.
Okay. Over half of us are dying of cancer. Half. Okay. Turn it on, turn it off. You want to turn it off, you get away from dairy products. You get away from sucking on the breast of a cow. That's one step. That's one thing. Now, there's also chemical toxins out there that are a huge part of this. Like my buddy's chronic lymphocytic leukemia. The first thing the doctor said, he goes, "You ever work in a plywood plant?" He's like, "Well, actually, I did for a little while when I was in college." He's like, "Yep, there's chemicals in those plywood plants always attached to this chronic lymphocytic leukemia thing. We found that out over years of studying it. And just having these people come in." The other thing is casein. We don't have the substance in our gut to digest it. You can look it up. So in the baby cow, they have a substance called renin. Renin breaks down that casein protein that's specific to the cow. We don't have it. That's why every human being is lactose intolerant at some level, because we can't digest it. That's why what they'll do is when you go to these like advisor functions and stuff like that, what do they put out there? They put out a lot of cheese. Why do they put cheese out there? Because it's very cheap to fill you up and keep you full. Why am I saying that? Because when you eat it, your body just can't digest it. So it's going to stay down there forever and digest and digest and digest. In fact, some medical doctors today, when people have ulcers, they'll say, drink some milk. Why? Because the milk will coat the stomach and make a barrier for a little while and give the ulcer a little bit of relief, right? You can't digest it. So all I can tell you is I've watched as myself and now thousands of clients get off of dairy products, they heal. So that's why I would say, the only milk that we should drink is the breast milk of our mother, and we should do it for a period of at least 2 years. This is a very important point. You're a new father and you have your wife. I know people get busy and they're like, breastfeeding's for the birds. No, breastfeeding is it's like the child's going to build strong bones. They're going to grow and build bones for their life. Well, guess what? They're also going to build a strong gut bacteria and oral microbiome. All this stuff is it's forming right now. And a lot of these antibodies and these things are going to come, and bacteria are going to come from mom. Mom should be breastfeeding for at least 2 years. The average breastfeeder in the world, how long do you think women on average breastfeed in the world's population?
Wow.
6 years. You're muted again, Mike. It's 6 years.
No, I was gonna say I was gonna go lower, but with the world population, I guess higher. So 6 years is a long time.
Yeah,
that's way above what I was guessing. I was gonna say 3, but
here's the other thing. I have an experience. Like my first child, his mom got really sick and she dried up after about 6 months. My child Cody, my oldest now, he's like 20, he's 21. He's got allergies. He's been sicker. He's had more colds and stuff. We put him on soy because that's soy Similac, because that's what doctor told us to do. Soy milk, what I mentioned earlier, it's indigestible by humans. My son's throwing it up, basically telling me by throwing it up, Dad, I can't, he couldn't talk. He's like, baby. He's like, bleh, bleh, throwing it up all the time. I can't digest this, Dad. And I didn't get it. It was, have some more, have some more, have some more. Force feeding him soybeans, genetically modified soybeans, right? That create formaldehyde. That's what happens when you disrupt the natural processes of plants, right? They start creating formaldehyde, just embalming fluid, basically. Feeding this to our children. Now, my youngest, he breastfed for 4 years. He doesn't get as sick hardly at all. I've seen it in my own personal life. So it's really important to breastfeed for at least 2 years. Now, if the wife can't do it, like if she can't breastfeed, something happens or whatever, then we like to do like sprouted nut milks, and we have actually mixed them with our green powder. Like I stripped some stuff out of here, like ashwagandha and astragalus, out of the formula, just so that pregnant and breastfeeding women could take the formula. We could give it to children. It's a nutrient replacement. That's a full meal replacement.
What about, it's interesting. Pea milk, PEA, Ripple is what we're feeding our child now. What do you think of that? This is now more personal.
Yeah, let's look it up. So I'm familiar with that brand.
It's like, but honestly, this touched home for me. I feel like as I get older, I go, do I need dairy? I can tell you right now, it's not casein, so that's good, right? Cool. All right.
I'm looking at the ingredients.
I was gonna say, because we got some Ripple in the fridge, I just
yeah, so it's a good
trial and error.
step. So the first ingredient's water. So my first question is what kind of water? Is it tap water that's polluted? Water really needs to be purified. So you got to think about this, because when your child was born, anybody can type this in. Mike, I suggest you do this after the podcast. Type in these 3 words: umbilical cord and chemical. Umbilical cord, chemical. Since 2005, there's studies going back that show that every single child and young mother's umbilical cord blood, they tested it for, like, let's say 400 chemicals. They found 250 of what they're looking for, and 180 cause cancer in humans, and 212 cause developmental and brain disorders. Children are being polluted today because mommy and daddy are polluted. These toxins are so pervasive today. They've bioaccumulated in our fat tissue, our muscle tissue, and our blood, and then we breed. We're actually de-evolving as a species, right? Because the reality is that Ripple doesn't exist. I would suggest you make your own milk, is what I'm getting to. So you want to have it minimal processed as possible. And then I'm pulling it up right now. So water, pea protein, and then I'm asking questions like, is it sprayed with chemicals? The third ingredient, though, is sugar, organic cane sugar. Now, sugar is, I usually don't tell people to get off of too many things, but sugar, the molecule structure of sugar is almost identical to cocaine. The structure of it. It's 3 times more addictive.
Yeah,
So
he doesn't like the unsweetened, so that makes sense.
Yeah, well, he's getting hooked on it. It's just like, it's a drug. It really is. Sugar is a drug, no question.
I think I'm hooked on it too.
Then there's other stuff here, vitamin A palmitate, which is, I love, that's great. Vitamin D2, blah, blah. But my question is are those naturally occurring sources of vitamin A palmitate, or are they made a synthetic version in a lab, right? DHE, algal oil, okay, great. Calcium phosphate, dipotassium phosphate, sunflower lecithin, natural flavors. Now, with that one right there, I would run, because what are they? By law, natural flavors can be 90% synthetic, only 10% needs to be natural. Guargum's fine, sea salt, okay. I'd rather have like some type of Himalayan salt. It's got some minerals in it. So anyway, I would give you a C+ right now. Because it's
almost my GPA at Tulane, just to bring this full circle.
Yeah,
it's a little below, but it kind of makes sense.
It's a lot better. It's a lot better than dairy. So you guys should applaud yourself, because I was feeding my child Similac, and I try to be loving towards myself, because I was so mad at myself for not knowing this. But you don't know. You just kind of going along. You look, there's a whole goddamn aisle full of it. Similac. And you're like, everybody else is grabbing it. I was like, oh, doctor told me to get it. And I go back to my busy life. I'm just doing what I'm told. We have to start being the gatekeepers of what goes in our mouths and in our child's mouth. We have to read every ingredient. And the scary thing is that you can read every ingredient and you still don't even know what's in some of these things. Cereals, as an example, they have chemists, very expensive chemists, that are putting opiate derivatives into the cereals today to even further addict kids, and they don't even have to put it on the label. Opiate derivatives are in cereal today. Not to mention the high fructose corn syrup and the corn syrup and all this stuff. I can go look at the cereal aisle. There's usually one brand you can get, Ezekiel brand cereal. That's the one. The one that's sprouted. It's a sprouted grain cereal. Pretty much the rest of them are junk. There's a few in there depending on which store you go to. But if you go to the major box stores and stuff, it's all just garbage. It's human destroying garbage, and it's not good. It's not good at all. Look around. Shit, everybody's overweight and sick. People are dying, heart disease and cancer. It's ridiculous. So we just have to be smart. We have to be an intelligent system. We can't be dumb systems anymore. We have to have sensors, and we have to understand there's these things called disturbances out there that are going to affect our system. And we, as the controller, we can dictate what those inputs are. So we can, just like you decided to, instead of buying dairy, you bought the Ripple. Well, we can look over here and you can go to like Blue Mountain Organics, and you can buy some sprouted nut butters. And with a high-speed blender, you can very quickly make your own sprouted nut milks in 5 seconds. And then you could put like a scoop of our greens in it, and then that would be like not only a baby formula, but I put like high-level athletes on this stuff. People that want to build muscle, men that want to build muscle, women that want to have strength, people want to gain weight, have good high-quality fats in their diet for their cell, for the lipid membrane around their cells. So there you go, buddy. Green milk is the way to go. If your child can't do it, celery juice is another thing that would be good. If you had to do animals, had to, I would say use raw goat's milk because the other thing too is that people don't think about this stuff. A child grows from like 7 pounds to 21 pounds in the first year. So they triple in size, but a cow's going to go from like 100 pounds to like, 700 pounds. So it's like a 6 to 7 ratio. See, the growth factor is too much. Whereas a goat is more of like a 3 to 1 like us, right? And you want to get raw milk that's unpasteurized. But you got to be careful because what they're doing right now is they're actually cracking down on these raw milk places because if it's not pasteurized, you can hurt somebody. E. coli and salmonella. That's what they're worried about. But if it's done right, not a big deal. So I get it. Little house on the prairie. Mom died or sick. Pa's going to go out in the barn and milk the cow and try to keep the baby alive. Okay, that makes sense. But we're in the 21st century now, and we're a little bit beyond that. We should be intelligent beings, not just run around, doing what the television says.
Thank you. I'm gonna tell my wife. I mean, she's the other half that actually looks this deeply into things. I'm a little bit of a wild card, so this was actually very informative. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, I get a lot of women that love me about that. They're like, why is it like, I've been telling my husband this for 12 years. He hears you once on a podcast. Now he's running around telling me to start doing this.
Honestly, I just do what I'm told anyway.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's our MO, right? Happy wife, happy life. That's trust me, that'll never change. Just so we're clear.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of which, I probably have to go in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no. We're going to go ahead and wind it down and everything. Unless Mike, do you have anything else that question wise or whatever?
No. Listen, thank you both for having me on. Maybe should have prepared a little bit better to make it a little bit more succinct, but hopefully it was entertaining to some people out there, including yourself. And I learned something from you, Tim. So appreciate it. Thank you, Carter. I'm going to try to nudge those people over at my company again, but appreciate talking to you guys.
Hey, are you kidding me? Look, here's the deal. We got to be your very first podcast that you were on.
Yep.
So if nothing else, we've got that, right?
Oh, 100%. I listen, I had a lot of fun. Learned a lot.
And trust me, the Enrichers are going to enjoy this. It was fun, very entertaining and everything. So we really do thank you for being on here. So, hey, Enrichers, thank you again for joining us for another Health and Wealth podcast. To be able to listen to all of our previous podcasts, make sure to check out our website at thehealthandwealthpodcastshow.com. This podcast went a little bit longer than normal. Maybe I got a little bit woo. And then also like, share, and subscribe. You can get all of your podcast recordings on Apple, Spotify, and Google as well. So make sure that you do like, share, and subscribe. So for Mike Rosenberg from Smart Asset and Smart Advisor, and my co-host, Mr. Chemical Free Body, Tim James, I am Carter Wilcoxon, CEO and founder of CSI Financial Group and co-founder of Epic Services Company. Wishing you all a very wonderful rest of your day and happy abundance. We will see you next time on the Health and Wealth Podcast Show. Thank you, everybody. Hey, Enrichers. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Wilcoxon.
And I'm your host, Tim James. And by God, we are committed to helping you guys have fat wallets, flat bellies. So tune in again for another episode and make sure to like, share, and drink a lot of water.
Or beer.
You have just listened to the Health and Wealth Podcast with Carter and Tim.